What's good, y'all? So, there is a lot of news going on in the wrestling world, so I thought, hey, might as well go ahead and talk about some of the news that's going on. I do want to make a disclaimer. I don't claim myself to be a wrestling journalist. As a matter of fact, I don't really think wrestling journalism is really a real thing. I'm just a dude who likes to make YouTube videos that talks about wrestling, just for clarification. But anyways, let's get to some of this news. First things first, I want to talk about the WWE has removed Gable Steveson from the NXT roster. Gable Steveson is a weird case. He really is. You know, two-time NCAA champion. You could tell the WWE was really wanting to build this dude up as not only the next big thing, but the next Kurt Angle even. They have him and they feature him in a prominent spot at WrestleMania, you know, with Randy Orton, Chad Gable, Street Profits, etc. You have him get drafted to Raw, right? You know, have him, you know, with his family and everything. Then you don't hear from him for months, and then it's like, is he gonna even show up on Raw? Is he? What is he gonna do? Is he gonna be with Alpha Academy? Like, what's the dude gonna do? And then he goes to NXT where his brother's at, has a little feud over there with his brother in like the reincarnation of Raw Underground, now NXT Underground. Then they do a whole ass commercial hyping his big announcement, acting like his entire draft process to Raw didn't take place. Decides that he's gonna stick around and stay in NXT. Has his first match ever against Baron Corbin at the Great American Bash. The fans were eating him alive at the show and the internet to the point where Corbin was even getting cheered. And honestly, with the WWE Endeavor, which we're definitely gonna talk about next, with those guys pretty much about to mix up for real, expect a lot of cuts. Don't be surprised if Gable Steveson ends up being one of those cuts. So honestly, Gable Steveson, this pet project, this experiment hasn't been the best because, in my opinion, like when you try to, first things first, when you try to make someone the next Kurt Angle, it's not going to work out well. Like, no. And Gable Steveson, it's just, he's just, right, at least right now, he's just, you can argue that he's just not talented enough. Now, his brother, Damon Kemp, on the other hand, he's good. He's good. Now, the next thing I want to talk about, y'all, is this whole Endeavor and WWE, UFC merger. It's finally happening. Apparently, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but apparently it's coming into play uh, next Tuesday. And with this, we could very well expect to see a lot of cuts. Y'all know how these companies like to do these massive layoffs, like, ESPN, Disney, etc. So they could very well do that, with this Endeavor and WWE merger finally taking place and finally coming in as one. You can very well see a lot of cuts from the WWE, not just wrestlers, but like producers as well. I know a couple of wrestlers that I can name off the top of my head, like probably Aaliyah. She might, and I hate saying release, but that's just business at the end of the day. But like, I could very well see Aaliyah getting the boot because like they haven't been doing anything with her. And then the same can be said for like Emma. You guys know Emma. They brought her back and she's a jobber. And then I'll even say Madcap Moss. Even what I'm saying. Not saying it ain't gonna happen, but it could very well happen. Speaking of happening, CM Punk. Look, we might as well just talk about him. CM Punk is definitely the biggest news out of this entire wrestling world. Obviously, the news coming out literally a week ago that Punk got fired from AEW. And now you had CM Punk chants starting up at this Indian live event, Superstar Spectacular. This was the big WWE Indian live event for the fans over there. John Cena and Seth Rollins headlined it. But there were CM Punk chants during the Natalia and Zoe Stark match, which was just like, oh man. So even the fans in India, they don't care about Natalia. They don't care about Zoe Stark. All they want is CM Punk. And people have been saying, oh, I guess now that CM Punk is gone from AEW, he can go to WWE. I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna say this. In the land of wrestling, anything could happen. I mean, I'm not saying CM Punk is not gonna come back, but I'm not ruling out that he could possibly come back. I mean, Triple H went on the Stone Cold Steve Austin podcast, a couple years back, and Stone Cold even asked him like, you think Punk's coming back?" And he was like, "Steve, never say never," which is true, which is true. So if the WWE, if Endeavor, if they see money with Punk bringing him back, then they'll bring him back. If they don't, well, then he ain't coming back. So we'll just have to see what happens. You know what I'm saying? But it's not like the company is gonna end because he's not coming back. I mean, if that was the case, the company would have folded years after he walked out. But yeah, speaking of AEW, I kind of want to talk about this Grand Slam tournament. This Grand Slam tournament to see who's going to challenge MJF for the title. Number one, man, this tournament's pointless. I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. We already know the end game. It's MJF and Samoa Joe at AEW Grand Slam, and then it's like you have Nick Wayne and Darby Allin in the competing. And like, don't get me wrong, like Nick Wayne, like 19 years old, he's just starting out. I get it, he's a young kid and all that, and I'm not hating or nothing. But like, Nick Wayne's like 0-2 in AEW. That man hasn't won a match in AEW, and he's in competing in a tournament for the world title, the AEW top prize possession. You even got Jeff Hardy competing in the tournament, which is like, really, like, no offense, I love Jeff Hardy, but the man just lost to Jeff Jarrett not too long ago, and his reward is getting a potential shot at the AEW World Title. We obviously know he won't gonna win the tournament because he won't gonna beat Joe, but still, like, come on now. And then you got like other people like Jay Lethal in it. Like, this tournament is just so predictable, and honestly, I just we all know what the end game is, especially after what we saw on AEW Dynamite. All right, the last little bit of news I want to talk about was John Cena, man. They call John Cena the greatest of all time. There's many people who are considered to be the greatest of all time. But WWE's really, really calling John that. Like, that's his like new nickname now. Ladies and gentlemen, the greatest of all time, John Cena. But John Cena recently came out in an interview leading up to Superstar Spectacular talking about Roman Reigns, and he calls Roman Reigns the greatest of all time. And honestly, at this point, I don't even think that's even really debatable. I mean, yeah, definitely of this current time period right now where the WWE is at, Roman Reigns is the greatest. I mean, freaking Universal Champion for over 3 years. I mean, multiple time WrestleMania main eventer, the biggest draw, in WWE today. Like, there's no case in point. I mean, WWE is literally telling you. They don't even have to say it. They are literally telling you that today Roman Reigns is the greatest of all time. He is sitting on that top of the mountain. Nobody touching him. Nobody touching him. So I'm not surprised John Cena said that, and the fact that John Cena says that, even though many people look at him as the greatest of all time, it's honestly kind of humbling if you think about it. You know what I'm saying? It just goes to show you how good of a person John Cena is. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this little video. Let me know in the comment section how do you feel about some of these news items I discussed today. And yeah, man, I'll see y'all later. So yeah.